This is Movers and Shakers, where we interview the upcoming generation of Make It Happen multifamily investors to share their story.
Welcome to the Movers and Shakers podcast. My name is Gino Barbaro, co-founder of Jake and Gino, multifamily investor, educator, father, mentor, and I am joined by my co-host, my bros of Joshua Ryan Rusin, community director of Jake and Gino. Josh, how are you today?
Gino, excited, man. With everything that's going on with the corona and the uncertainty in the economy, just leveraging this time to really assess everything we're doing, figure out how we can get better, and then ruthlessly implement those things and just focus on growing and improving our processes. So very excited. I know that in this scenario, people have two choices, right? You improve or you just kind of take your foot off the gas and watch Netflix. And, I'm excited about the people I'm around and the choices they're making. So, Gino, how about you?
Well, you summed it up in a few words for me. You're either growing or you're dying, bro. And our guest today is definitely growing. And I'm glad that he's on the show. He's been a big part of my life for the last few years. So, Josh, let's introduce the guest today because I'm pumped right now.
Today's guest is Kent Ritter. Kent is a former startup owner and corporate executive turned real estate investor. As a real estate investor, Kent has achieved financial freedom and is pursuing his dream. Now he is passionate about helping others own their financial future through real estate. Kent is the host of the Ritter on Real Estate podcast and YouTube channel, where he teaches people how to passively invest like a pro. He is the VP of Investor Success at Birge Held Asset Management. Since 2008, they've acquired 13,500 apartment units and currently hold $1.1 billion in assets under management. Their 12-year track record, vertical integration, and 8-hour rapid rehab process creates unparalleled value for their investors. Kent currently resides in Indianapolis, Indiana, with his beautiful wife and 3 kids. Welcome to the show, Kent.
Thanks for having me, guys. So excited to be here. Love being able to connect with you guys, and I don't feel like I can spend enough time with you, so this is great.
Man, Kent, where to start? So that bio is action-packed. I mean, not many people can say former startup owner, corporate executive, financially free, things like that. Let's unpack some of those beginning ones, kind of your startup life to corporate executive to real estate.
Yeah, sounds good. So I started my career at a college as a management consultant. And what that means, what a management consultant does is basically you solve problems. So organizations would hire us. I specifically worked for large health systems, so about $1 billion in revenue plus. And the CFO would ask us questions like, my margin is down, I don't know why. Help me figure it out, then help me solve it. So we would come in, we would do evaluation, assessment, and then we would solve that problem. So a lot of that is it's really change management, it's communication, it's guiding people through a journey and a path, right, to get them to change and make that change stick. So a lot of those things I think are so applicable to real estate. And so I think starting out as a management consultant has been a huge benefit to my real estate career. But essentially I was working at a firm and we saw, myself and my partners saw the market going in one direction, and our firm was going in kind of staying the course in their same direction. And we decided to leave and start our own firm. So it was a boutique management consulting firm, really focused on healthcare IT. And we ran that for 6 years, grew it to 95 employees, 30 million in annual revenue. And that was an awesome experience of being able to, it was a true startup, like tale where we were literally working around a guy's kitchen table, and we moved out to an office, then another office, then another office, and we had 2 floors and just kept growing and growing. And real quick, funny story. The reason that we actually had to go get the office was because we're sitting around this guy's kitchen table, and it was like Girl Scout cookie season, right? And we ate the whole house out of Girl Scout cookies. That was the last straw for his wife. She was like, you guys got to get out. You guys got to go. You guys got to start an office. So we left, we got the office. But yeah, it was incredible just to go through that process and understand how to grow a business and all the mechanics of a business, the accounting, the marketing, the operations, all those things, and to learn from the inside and grow. And then we sold that business, and then I became an executive at the firm that we sold for. So it was kind of a different experience working at a very large company, 4,000 employees, and living in that corporate environment for a little bit. So having those unique experiences, I think from the business background has helped me as I set off to be a real estate investor, really to kind of institutionalize things, set up processes, manage the change, right? Set up the plans. And so, yeah, but what I realized in working in that corporate environment was, it's great. The pay was fantastic. I worked with really smart people, but ultimately it wasn't my passion. It wasn't my passion. So I had to go out and find my passion. And I stumbled into real estate. I had a family friend who was a commercial lender. He got me involved in some real estate transactions. I started on the debt side doing some private lending. And then just kind of expanded from there and started learning new things. I joined the Jake and Gino community, which was like a catapult. Just launching me into, multifamily, large multifamily, and then into syndications, which is what I'm doing now. So it was just kind of an incredible journey from beginning to end.
So Ken, can you just dive into what were some of your limiting beliefs when you got into multifamily, when you specifically joined the Jake and Gino community?
Yeah. So limiting belief, one was, one of the biggest ones was just, I think I said this to you, Gino. This is a great story because you were like, we were having a coaching call and I'm just like, man, there's no big deals in Indy. Like, I can't find any.
Love this.
And we get off the phone and Gino literally sends me an email. He's like, hey bro, look what I just found. And somebody had sent him a 700 unit deal. And I was like, well, limiting belief crushed right there. But what that made me realize was, I'm just not on the right lists. I don't know the right people. And so I had to go out and I had to network and I had to meet the right people and I had to do the legwork to build those relationships, to start getting that deal flow. Mm-hmm. So I think that was one of my biggest ones.
Hey, so when you do pray, you pray hard. Sometimes your prayers get answered. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, please let me show Kent that he's wrong, And literally, Kent, God's honest truth, it was like 2 minutes after the call, I go to my email. And in my email box is this deal. I said, I can't believe this. Even if I asked for it, it wouldn't have showed up. So I thought it was awesome. But there was another limiting belief that Kent experienced, I think, and I experienced it also, is that when somebody gets into multifamily, all they think of is, where am I going to get the money? And how am I going to buy this deal by myself? Mm-hmm. I don't think Kent knew syndication at the time. I don't want to speak for him, but for myself, no, right. I didn't know what syndication was at all. I didn't understand that multifamily was truly a scalable business when I first started out, and the economies of scale and the ability to build and the ability to really truly leverage other people's money. All those things that really excited me as I started my journey, and I was able to start teaching other students. You want to speak to that real quick? Because I think that gave you a wholly different paradigm and gave you the confidence to say, I can do this by myself. If I can figure out the syndication and this type of model and not be worried about taking investor money, that can really shift the game for me.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right, Gino. I mean, I didn't even know what syndication was. So it wasn't even enough to be a limiting belief yet. It was just a lack of knowledge, right? I was just ignorant to it. And I had to go out and educate myself. And it was, but understanding the process, that was when the light bulb really went off for me because and I had somebody push back because I said, they're like, okay, well, what do you want to do is, well, I'm going to go out and buy like a 50 unit. And it was, okay, well, what are you going to do then? They're like, well, I'm going to run it, blah, blah, blah. They're like, yeah, but you can't scale. You can't grow. Like all your money will be blown and you'll be stuck running that building. Mm-hmm. Learned about syndication. And then the light bulb went off and it was really about, seeing that path to scale. And I think that comes from again, I think my background as a consultant and business owner, everything for me is about how do you scale? Mm-hmm. How do you create something that can really grow and is a repeatable process? Mm-hmm. And so I think syndication was that set me off on a whole different path, which has kind of brought me to where I am today, which is because with syndication, when I first started thinking about real estate, I thought of it as a very personal thing. I was going to go invest and it was kind of just me. Mm-hmm. Thinking about syndication, I mean, you really have to put yourself out there, right? You have to get out of your comfort zone. You have to be out there talking to investors, talking to brokers, really marketing yourself in these ways. Mm-hmm. And that's led me down a totally different path where I never thought I would be, which is now starting a podcast and a thought leadership platform and really putting my ideas out there in a way that I never, I've never really expected to. And honestly is still really uncomfortable, but I'm I'm stepping out of my comfort zone every day, and that's the only way you grow, right?
Isn't that cool? Isn't that a great feeling? I've got a good picture of you and myself at one of those boot camps, walking the properties, taking the bus tours. Can you describe that experience? Because that must have been eye-opening for you, because going to the properties, seeing what a 2-bedroom is, seeing what a 3-bedroom is, talking about sure deposits, and getting the business from the inside out. How did that leave a mark on you? What did you take away from those experiences?
I think those were great experiences. I think just the practical steps of, what should you be looking for? How do you turn an apartment, right? What should you be looking at? What should you be putting in it? One of the biggest takeaways from I think I remember that one boot camp was, it's just those side conversations that you're having with folks, right? Mm-hmm. With whether it's with the coaches, like Bill Ham. I was talking with Bill Ham, and that guy's a wealth of knowledge, but he was talking about one of his favorite topics, which is plumbing, and basically how plumbing blows up, right? And I
thought it was guns. He likes to talk about guns. Okay, but
well, maybe when he's not talking about guns, it seems like he's talking about plumbing.
He talks about guns and flowers and growing your vegetables. I mean, those are total dichotomy, right? You would never know that, but that's what I love about Bill. I'm like, Bill, I love the same things you love, guns and vegetables. I'm like, dude, that is great. So.
He's like a Renaissance man. The guy does everything. Uh-huh. But he was just talking about how plumbing is the thing you really need to watch out for. It's the hidden expense that you're never gonna, it's really difficult to understand. But what he was really talking about was how the vintage of the property, whether it was built in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, how construction methods changed over that time, and how buying something that's kind of post 1980, you can really avoid a lot of issues with the older plumbing technologies. And just that level of granularity, I think, is extremely important in educating yourself to make good investment decisions and know, like, from my perspective, being really largely a passive investor at that time, knowing what questions to ask to say, okay, this property was built in the 1960s. Okay, well, what kind of reserves have you guys put in place for plumbing? Knowing that it's going to blow up, are we prepared for that?
I love the path that you took from this journey. You started as a passive investor. You made a few mistakes. You continued to learn. Then you said, let me get educated. Let me join a community. And then let me start doing it myself. What advice would you give to anybody trying to get into multifamily real estate right now?
Yeah, man, probably I have a lot of advice. That's why I started a podcast, a lot of advice. But no, the first one I'd say is you have to find a network of people. I think that's critical. You have to find a network of people that are like-minded and interested in the same things that you are, because being a real estate investor can be a pretty lonely experience if all you're talking to are your friends and family who probably don't have the same mindset, probably don't think in the same way. A lot of them are probably, comfortable just going to the W-2 job and doing that, going to 8 to 5 and coming home and kind of doing that thing over and over again and putting it in the 401k and retiring at 65. So when you tell people that you're taking an alternate path, you're leaving your job that was paying over 6 figures, you're going out on your own, you're taking all this risk, you get a lot of pushback. So on the other side of that, you need a community and a network that gets you and can support you. Because I think that when you come up as an entrepreneur, you come up to a lot of decision points, and there can be a lot of doubt at times. And so you need that push behind you to help you forward. I think that's
I love
really
that.
helpful.
That's the accountability piece, everybody, that Kent is talking about. For me, my accountability piece is the man across the mic over there, Josh. He's pushing me every day. He's scheduling calls at 8 o'clock at night. He's saying we're working on the weekends. I'm like, damn, I can't let this guy down. I gotta keep up with him. And he's smiling there. I see the smile there, but it's true, bro. And the other one is Jake. I mean, listen, there's a partner who's working 12 to 14-hour days. When the pandemic hit, there was nobody saying, hey, you know what, let's curl up in the ball in the fetus position in the corner. No, let's get to work. Let's start doing the PPP. Let's start doing all this work. So I 100% agree with that accountability piece.
Yeah, Kent, I want to segue back to your podcast. So when did you decide to start a podcast, and why ultimately start the podcast?
So I've been thinking about doing a thought leadership platform for probably 6 months, maybe even a year as this started. As I started, so I spent 3 years, probably more than 3 years now, really just absorbing everything I could, right? The Jake and Gino programs, books, podcasts, everything. So I've been immersing myself in real estate. And I got to the point where I started when people would ask questions, I started realizing that I had the answers. And so, with that, and I've learned a couple things about myself. One is, I like teaching. I like helping other people. And I love talking about real estate. So one thing I did first was, as kind of a baby step, was I started a meetup in Indianapolis, a multifamily meetup. Because there wasn't one in the city that really was focused on larger multifamily, which is what I wanted to do. So really use that as a way to say, okay, do I like this? Do I like putting myself out there, and use it as a way to start to get out of my comfort zone? And in doing that, like, the experience has been great. I've had great responses, but you can only reach so many people in doing that. So I thought the next step would be a podcast. I mean, I see the community you guys have built and others, and I just think that's such a great medium to be able to get yourself out there. So with the YouTube channel and podcast, I really want to be able to help people make the right investment decisions. So the tagline is passively invest like a pro. And it's really focused on helping people not make the same mistakes I did, because I started as a passive investor, made 10 passive investments, lost money on one of them, which was a big kick in the pants. And that was one of the things that really catapulted me to say, okay, I really need to educate myself. I can't just go out there willy-nilly and be trusting other people. So the podcast really came from wanting to educate people, wanting to help others, but then selfishly, like I said, you've got to create a community around yourself of like-minded people. And a podcast is a great way to continue to meet people and network and grow and learn. And I think ultimately that's going to make me a better investor as well.
Love it. So it sounds like, if I'm hearing you correctly, this podcast is a lot of what you wish you would have known when you first got started. And that way people can learn through your mistakes rather than getting out there and experiencing that pain that you went through in your journey, right? That's right.
And the podcast name is Ritter on Real Estate, and it's actually launching on May 1st. So I think it will have launched at this point. So it's out there everywhere you listen to podcasts. But that's exactly right, Josh. It's I didn't have great tools at the beginning, and because of that, I made some mistakes that if I would have had tools and education, I wouldn't have made. So I want to help people. I want to help people bypass those things, right? And the show is really it's interview based, and it's called the title's Passively Invest Like a Pro, because I'm interviewing professionals, and the whole concept is, as a passive investor, you have to educate yourself like a pro. You have to know just as much as the folks out there buying deals, because that's the only way you can make an informed decision on the investment. And in one way, you really have to know more, because you also have to dig in and do the due diligence on the sponsor. So a lot of what I focus on is, how do you pick the right sponsor? How do you do the due diligence on them? And really, how do you educate yourself and go through that process? And each episode, we're trying to come out of it with practical action steps folks can take to immediately become better investors. So in every show, I'm trying to break it down to, here's what the expert said. Here's what you should do because of that. Now take it and go forward and immediately implement.
I love that. Kent, before we get to the short answer questions, can you just highlight a couple of mistakes that you made on your passive investing journey and said, hey, listen, I wish I hadn't done that?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest one was kind of my deal gone bad. So I have an example where it was one of the first deals I did. I was actually, my first entrance to real estate was through crowdfunding. So, I didn't have a network of my own. So I was leaning into the internet and saying, okay, I'm going to check out these crowdfunding sites. I made a couple of investments, not doing the due diligence that I should have, because I didn't even know at that point. So it was really just going on, finding a deal. I thought, oh, that looked nice, I'll do that. I ended up losing my money in that deal because the sponsor did some things that were fraudulent, and he ended up defaulting on his Fannie loan, and they foreclosed on the property, and everybody lost their money. So it was really, like I said, a kick in the pants. And had I have known what I know now, I mean, one, I don't think I'd be out on crowdfunding just finding deals, but I don't think you can, I would never invest with someone again that I didn't know. So going out on a website and just finding somebody and clicking you're going to invest with them, I think that's pretty risky. I think you got to get to know the person. You got to do the due diligence on the sponsor. And two, just the level of research that you have to do. You can't rely, like I went with this site because they said that they did their own due diligence because they were investing in the deals along with you. Well, that due diligence didn't really work out for me, right? Because I wasn't doing my own. So you've got to educate yourself to be able to do your own, ask your own hard questions, and make sure you're getting answers to your questions up front.
I love that. So, Josh, you've heard me say a person with money meets a person with experience, and the person with the experience gets the money, and the person with the money gets the experience. And we've been through that a lot. I've been through that a couple of times. It sounds like Kent does. It's always education times action equals results. You can take massive action. Kent was taking massive action. I've taken massive action when I first started my real estate career. That's great. We want to do that. But Kent, what stopped you? What didn't stop you from investing? Because that first deal could have sunk you. You could have said, hey, real estate's risky. My wife and my mother-in-law told me that I shouldn't do it. And what made you pursue and continue to go on for the next one?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point, because that definitely happens to people, right? You have one bad experience, you're totally turned off. I knew that it wasn't real estate's fault, right? I was self-aware enough to know that, I had made mistakes. I didn't do the work that I should have done going into it. But I knew that real estate still fundamentally was a solid investment. I have a finance and an econ background. And so I still believe in the supply and demand dynamics of real estate. I still believe that multifamily especially is a great investment. You just have to be careful who you're investing with.
I love that. Let's take a quick time out to hear from our sponsors.
At Rand Capital, we're focused on providing the best financing option for each deal and every client. Our personalized service, along with our blue-collar work ethic, will give you the peace of mind to know that we will take the stress out of the financing process so that you can focus on other aspects of your business. For more information and to find out how Rand Capital can help you find the best loan for your deal, visit randcapllc.com to start the conversation.
Okay, Kent, since you're a returning guest, I'm going to throw a little curveball here and hit you with two short answer questions. So if you could give any piece of advice to your 20-year-old self, go back and just say one thing, what would it be and why?
Oh man, that's good. I would start investing in real estate right away. I would have gone out and, house hacked it, got a duplex, and just kept building that up. Because if I started, I started with really focusing on real estate when I was 30. If I'd started when I was 20, I mean, I can't imagine where I'd be right now.
I love that answer. I would just add, if it was myself going back when I was 20 years old, I would tell myself to focus on becoming financially free, no matter what that takes. If that's house hacking, if that's selling real estate, if that's building a business and selling it, just to build up my skill set when I'm 20 years old. And I think Josh has proven one other thing to me. When you're 20 and you're really young, I think everyone should go back out there and get a sales, work on yourself in the sales department, become a skillful salesperson. And that's not just being a wheeler and dealer, but utilize what we do, finding impact together, the same side selling. If you can do that when you're 20, by the time you're 30, you're going to be a master, and you're going to be providing so much value to so many people. You're going to be solving so many problems. You're going to be making so much money that it doesn't really matter. You're going to be having a great life because you're going to be helping others. So for me, I was really thinking about becoming financially free and really learning how to become a really great salesperson and helping others.
Love it. All right. For the second question, if you could have dinner with one person, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Oh man, that is a great question. I would. I just read his book. I think he's a fascinating guy. I'd say Sam Zell, and he's a he's just not only is he a great real estate investor. I mean, he's started funds in mobile homes, multifamily, and office. I think he's still the largest mobile home owner. But he's just a fascinating guy. He's very he's interesting, right? He's not conformist. He's not kind of the buttoned up suit, which I spent a lot of time being just in my consulting role, and is really not me. And he just had the attitude of if you're great at what you do, then you can act however you want, and people are still gonna work with you. And because he was great at what he did, he was able to do whatever he wanted, and people still wanted to work with him. And I just thought that was fantastic.
I love that.
Yes, love it. Okay, so there's been a lot of really good golden nuggets on this show. I want to dive into a few of them, and Gino, I know you're going to only add to it. So one is building this as a business, not a side hustle, right? And always looking for ways to scale, and that way you can replace yourself, and looking for ways to get more reach. And in this business, a lot of times it's not what you don't know that you know you don't know that'll hurt you, but what you're not aware of that you don't know that is really dangerous. And trust but verify, right? Kent, with his first, one of the deals he invested in passively, if he would have went out there and verified that on his own, maybe there would have been a different outcome there. We don't know. But at the same time, it's always good to have that extra verification. Gino, what do you have to add to that?
Well, to me, Kent is living proof of multifaceted multifamily, right? It's bought the investment. Now he's a limited partner. He's going to be GPing on certain deals, becoming a general partner. So he's got multiple streams of revenue. He's going to be creating a podcast, the education platform. So he's living proof that multifaceted truly works, creating additional streams of revenue. The next piece is find the network with people that are like-minded. That accountability piece is huge. And you look around and everyone who's successful in life, super successful, they have coaches, health coaches, fitness coaches, money coaches, whatever, life coaches, whatever that may be, holding them accountable to what they want to achieve. I think that's really important. I love the thought leadership platform. And what I learned from that for me is learning from others. We're thought leaders, but there's so much for us to learn from these podcasts and from doing it. And I think Kent is already experiencing that and is really enjoying that and saying that maybe I want to be the thought leader, but I'm bringing other people on and I'm sharing their thought leader, almost like the Napoleon Hill, right? Where you're interviewing other people and you're like, okay, I can learn on this stuff and I can really help people out. I think also is baby steps. Kent took baby steps. He started out as a passive investor, did a few deals, and then he said, let me learn the whole process. Then he started investing on his own, and then he's going investing in deals. So that baby step growth is great. And I think the other thing, Josh, is mistakes. We all make mistakes out there, and that's okay. But those of us who learn from those mistakes, but still have the vision like Kent did of saying, I want to get out of corporate world. I want to become a thought leader. I want to help others. That's ultimately his vision. And the fact that he lost a little bit of money on his first deal, ultimately that wasn't going to stop him. And he's going to continue to learn from his mistakes and hit that vision.
Love it. That's a lot of good ones. All right, Kent. So with this podcast coming out, where can listeners find the podcast? How can they get a hold of you? Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, the podcast is called Ritter on Real Estate, and it's about passively investing like a pro. And you can find it really everywhere you listen to podcasts. So we're going to be up on all the channels. And if folks want to check out my home base, it's kentritter.com. So just my name, and they can email me at kent@kentritter.com if they'd like to. But yeah, check out the podcast. Also the YouTube channel where we're posting video versions of the podcast and also posting, other tutorial videos and actually I post my meetups there too. So our monthly meetups are up there for folks to see where we have guests come every month as well. And that's Ritter on Real Estate as well.
So I want everyone out there to visit kentritter.com because I personally know that Kent's a great family man. He's a great guy. His wife is fantastic. She's going to become a life coach, which is awesome. Yeah. He's got 3 young kids, and he's progressing in life. And if there's any role models out there that you're looking for who are smart, who are intelligent, who are making it happen, who don't make excuses and are following their passion and are not willing to stay in their comfort zone and push themselves, then you're looking at the person you got to be following, Kent Ritter.
Thanks, guys. And if I could say one other thing, I want to make sure I mention we're running a special for May. If you subscribe to the podcast within May and you send a screenshot to me that you've subscribed, I've worked with several thought leaders, five of them, Gino being one of them, Joe Fairless, Dan Hanford, Hunter Thompson, and John Kasman have all agreed to provide some exclusive content that I've packaged together as our Passive Investor Success Package. So if you want to receive that from these guys, it's really, really good stuff. Then subscribe to the podcast in May, send it to my email with the screenshot showing you subscribed, and I'll send that off to you. And it's stuff that you can't get anywhere else. So thanks, Gino, for doing that, by the way. I really appreciate you.
Dude, you give to get, right? You know what I mean? This is what life's all about. It's all about creating the relationships and seeing somebody grow from being a corporate person to being able to leave their job to ultimately doing something that they love. That's what we want in life. We're here at Jake and Gino to help people through that process. And for me, there's nothing better in life, to be honest with you. I love it.
Wow, love it. Guys, well, listen, I want to thank Kent for being an amazing guest on the show and sharing even more of his Movers and Shakers story. Now, if you want to be the next Movers and Shakers guest, email me, josh@jakeandgino.com. And listen, if you like the show, please leave us a review. And until next time, let's make it a Movers and Shakers week. See you, everybody.
Thanks, Kent.
Thank you, guys.